Loyalty rewards programs and free gifts are not really anything new when it comes to business. You order 9 burritos and the 10th is free. You open a bank account and you get a toaster. It's a way to coax a consumer into spending just a little more money with a company, or maybe pushing them into picking that one brand over the competitor. They come in all types and sizes for all sorts of businesses. And as it turned out, that included a gas station chain in Florida in the 1950s that had their very own amusement park. In the late 1930s, a man by the name of Stanley Huey started a chain of independent gas stations in the Tampa area called Super-Test. Super-Test was cited as the first independent dealer in Tampa, and it did pretty well for itself. By 1939, the chain had 10 locations across the area. In the 1940s, Stanley's son Mike got involved with the business, and the two of them ran Super-Test together. Now, as World War II came to an end and the 1940s became the 1950s, automobiles exploded in popularity. Car ownership in the United States doubled over that decade after the war. More Americans than ever before were hitting the road, and that meant needing to fuel up before they did. I mean, it was also the 1940s. Cars were getting like 15 miles to the gallon. So quickly gas stations found themselves fighting over the American motorist's dollar. And that meant turning to a trick that proved useful just a decade or so earlier. During the Great Depression, glass manufacturers found themselves in a pretty tough spot. They were used to handcrafting and selling expensive glass dinner sets for people. But with the Depression on, folks weren't really in the market for expensive glassware. They were more in the market for dinner, or a job, or hopefully both. So the manufacturers pivoted from custom handmade sets to cheaper mass-produced sets. And here's where they got clever. Rather than selling the dinnerware directly to consumers, they sold them wholesale to other businesses. Those businesses, in turn, gave away the cheap glassware as promotional incentive to lure consumers in. At a time where money was extremely tight, the allure of something free was powerful. These glass dinner sets would come to be known as depression glass, or sometimes depressionware. So, back to the 1940s. Gas stations found themselves looking for ways to win over customers, and so they turned to that same depressionware concept. The service stations gave away car accessories, plants, glasses, stamps, and even toys just for buying gasoline. Well, in 1951, the father and son team behind Super-Test had another idea, and with that, the Super-Test Amusement Park was born. The first Super-Test Amusement Park opened on August 13, 1951 in Tampa, Florida, right along 13th Street. And in its original form, it was kind of a stretch to call it an amusement park. The park opened with 3 attractions: a 64-horse Philadelphia toboggan merry-go-round, and a small boat and airplane ride for children. The park was open to guests Monday through Saturday from 4 p.m. to 10 p.m. Unfortunately, since it was the 1950s and it was Florida, the park was also segregated, and Thursdays were the only day that African American guests could visit. Motorists would get 1 free ticket for a ride by purchasing either 5 gallons of gas, 5 gallons of kerosene, or 1 quart of oil from any Super-Test location. The idea was to buy your gas over and over again from Super-Test, stockpile these tickets, and then take your whole family to the amusement park for free. Sure, it only had like 3 rides, but it's not like it cost you anything extra. Except it kinda did. What's clever is that the park also offered some food, drinks, and snacks, and those weren't free. So on top of the return business from people looking for tickets, they could count on concession income. The park did so well in its first year that by the summer of 1952 they began to run ads in local papers looking for larger plots of land for an expanded Super-Test amusement park. On February 7, 1953, the original park closed its doors, and just 2 months later it reopened at its new home on Columbus Drive and Dale Mabry Highway. The new park offered more rides on top of the original 3, and would, over the years, come to offer a Ferris wheel, a whip ride, a caterpillar ride, a miniature train ride set along a half-mile long track, and a small Autopia-like ride for kids. In addition to the attractions, the park also featured a 24/7 diner, and what was touted as the largest gas station in Tampa at the time. It also had a zoo that well, looked exactly like what you'd expect a zoo owned by a gas station in Florida in the 1950s to look like. It housed monkeys, a bear, and a peacock. It wasn't just the park that expanded during the 1950s, however. The program for tickets eventually grew as well. They partnered with the food brand Stokely Van Camp, and anyone who purchased the company's food products could bring the labels into their nearest Super-Test station for a free ticket. Super-Test even doubled up on trying to win people over with freebies. One holiday season, they advertised that they were going to be giving away a free bike to one random guest every Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday, further incentivizing people to visit. After its grand reopening, the park would continue to operate for 11 more years, with more or less nothing notable happening. Oh, well, there was this one time in 1960 when an 8-year-old boy got too close to the cages at the zoo and had his finger bitten off by a monkey. I imagine that was pretty notable, for the boy and the monkey. Other than that, it was an average run-of-the-mill amusement park that just happened to be owned and operated by and attached to a gas station. The other thing that made it unique was that it was Tampa's first amusement park. Busch Gardens would eventually open while Super-Test was still around, but at that point it was essentially just a brewery and some animal exhibits. And this was years before Tampa residents could just drive to Orlando for Disney World or Universal. The Florida State Fair was, and still is, held in Tampa, but that only lasts a week or two out of the year. So for most Tampa residents at the time, the Super-Test Park was the best way to get that amusement park experience. Then, in May of 1964, without much fanfare, Super-Test took out an ad in the paper announcing that the park would be closing on June 13th until further notice, with no announced plans to reopen or explanation as to why they were closing. By that December, the park would be replaced with a shoe store called the Self-Service Shoe Store, which sounds like the laziest name for the laziest shoe store you could imagine. There was no mention of financial troubles or any other notable incident that would have caused its closure. It's likely that the park just wasn't financially beneficial enough for them when it came to driving gasoline sales, and it was far outside of the scope of their main business. The end of the Super-Test amusement park wasn't the end of Super-Test, nor was it the end of their incentives for customers. In 1970, they created the Super-Test Travel Club. According to a newspaper article about the arms race of gas station perks, the Super-Test Travel Club offered a 4-day, 3-night vacation for two at a number of locations, including Miami Beach, Vegas, and New Orleans, with the purchase of 10 gallons or more of gas. It didn't cover meals or transportation. This one article was actually the only mention I could find of the program. My guess is that they partnered with a handful of motels in these various cities and just counted on people to not take them up on the offer. In any case, it doesn't look like the program lasted long. As for freebies in general, they evolved over the years, and today we still have loyalty reward programs all over the place. Somewhere along the line, though, businesses realized that they had better luck by giving away a bit of whatever it was they were selling to begin with. That free lunch after 10 lunches, or a free coffee at a coffee shop. Stamps for buying gasoline, though, not so much. And as far as I can tell from my searching around, the Super-Test Park is the only example of a gas station using their own actual amusement park as a freebie. The closest example after that is maybe the discounted Six Flags tickets that you could get with cans of Coke, but not quite the same. It makes the Super-Test amusement park pretty unique, a standout in not only gas station and amusement park history, but Tampa and Florida's history as well.